Okay. So this is going to be the kind of the last week. This beginning 3 weeks, we're just, how do we figure out what to look for on Zillow, right? Using Zillow as a resource, using email and using spreadsheets, right? So three very simple things, free at the end of the day, to really just get your acquisition juices flowing. Um, we are week 3 of this, and again, we have this going. We will have a new training starting in a couple of weeks from now, and we'll just kind of get more in depth and more in depth and more in depth as we go. Um, and so let's get right into it. How to find real estate deals for free, week 3. Let's go. So this is kind of a recap, right? Just so everyone remembers, this is our week 1 and 2 buy box, what we're looking for. We're using Zillow, 1970 newer, 3.2 minimum, 1250 square feet and larger. Using search words like motivated, investor deal, price improvement, cash, investor deal, all that good stuff. This is gold. This is what I use to this day. So remember this, always use this. And if you're finding properties that fit within this buy box, they will work for hedge funds most of the time. And if they do not work for hedge funds, these are the type of deals that your mom and pop flippers look for as well. Your cash buyers, your fix and flippers, your rental holders. These are really great properties for anyone that invest in real estate. Okay, and so now here is our KPIs, right? So I kind of brought this up last week. We sent 73 offers out at 75% of the current on-market asking price, right? You see that price right on Zillow. We had 14 responses and 6 counters. Now, since last week, we've probably received a few more responses and a few more counters. And update since last week, I now actually have one of these under contract. Um, again, 4 or 5 hours worth of work. I have one under contract with about a 50, I think it was like a 14,700 spread with a hedge fund, right? So for me now, I have it under contract. Now I'm working the timelines on it. My next goal is to work with the agent on getting the hedge funds inspector into the property. So that's what happens, right? I'm not sending my inspector. This is virtual. I don't have a GC going to look at this. I don't need anyone to go take pictures for me. None of that stuff. All right, the agent, it's on market. We have all the pictures we need. The hedge funds able to see those pictures as well because I am sending them the Zillow link, literally sending them the Zillow link so they can go straight to the link, see the pictures. They know I have it under contract. They know I'm sending it to them at a discount, right? So they have everything they need. I did ask, hey, what condition is the roof in? What condition is the HVAC in? When was the last time it was replaced? All that stuff, right? That's all valuable information the hedge fund wants so that when they send you that initial offer, it's as close as possible to the final offer. That's what we want. We want that offer to be as close as possible. And they use pictures and the information you give them to get to that. And so, I believe this property, was listed in the 280 range. My first offer to them was 210. Obviously, the agent did not take it, but they gave me a counter. That counter, I believe, was in the 250 range. I came up to about 220 and we're rolling with that number. So the agent said, hey, I think that can do it. And here we are, right? A little negotiation is all it took. And I was able to then get it under contract and send it to the hedge fund. And the hedge fund came back at that 235 range. Now, all they did was they just added a rehab budget that they put on any property, right? Now, I think they probably put about a $40,000. This certain hedge fund put a $40,000 rehab on it. And so they're saying, we think this property is worth 275 after our $40,000 rehab, right? Although it could be worth a little bit more once they do that rehab, but they're saying, hey, all in 275 for us. So we're going to take 40K, our 40K rehab off of that. We'll give you 235 for the property. And then, they can inspect it and they could say, hey, this is going to be a $30,000 rehab or this will be actually a $50,000 rehab. So I need to make sure that I have a little bit of spread just in case something comes up that we weren't able to see in pictures, in case something comes up that we weren't told by the agent. And the nice thing about that is, the hedge fund's going to tell us exactly what that rehab is for. And so when we get those, we send the inspector to the property, and the inspector inspects it for the hedge fund, and the hedge fund will send us a report of that inspection. It's going to label everything: replacing roof, replacing HVAC, new windows, new interior doors, new light fixtures, whatever it might be. I actually use that as ammo for the agent and seller, right? So I'm saying, hey, you didn't tell me about this or that. And so, knowing that, I do need to come back for a little bit more on that. So then I could try to build that spread back again if I want to make sure I get back to that $15,000 spread. Um, or just so I know I can make some money on it and move forward with it. So that's kind of where I'm at with these deals. Now, I also know just from doing this in the past, these are 73 offers sent out. But I'm gonna follow up with these agents at least 3 times, probably 4 times. And I should pull 1 to 2 more deals out of this. Again, I've been doing this a long time, so I kind of know how to negotiate this stuff. So I might pull a couple extra than maybe the typical person, but getting one out of this is doable, very, very doable. Did not take much negotiation at all to get this thing done. So again, you can always bring me in, when the agents start countering and you're like, oh, that might work, that might not work. Please get me involved and we can kind of handle it together. I think that kind of makes it easy for everybody. Um, Now this is again the spreadsheet. So Edgar, coming back to you, did anyone start working with the spreadsheet? Put a 1 in the chat if you did start working with the spreadsheet. If you understand it, great. If you maybe don't understand something on the spreadsheet, go ahead and put the questions in the chat and we could answer them at the end. So that's a big thing. And I'm gonna go ahead and answer this question now. Let's go back to, okay, we'll stay there. So Monica, what are your thoughts on solar if it's fully paid for and owned? The only way a hedge fund will purchase a property that has solar is if it's fully paid off by closing, right? They do not let the sellers use the funds from the closing, right? Their equity payout. The hedge fund does not let the seller use those funds to pay off the solar. The solar has to be paid off before closing, not at closing, not a day after closing. It has to be paid off before closing. And usually it's about a 7 day thing, right? So if on Tuesday they're like, hey, we just gave money to the solar company, it's paid off. Solar company sent us the ownership slip for the solar. Okay, well now we can close in 7 days, right? So just keep that in mind. That's how solar works. If it's leased, it's a no-go. They do have to own them outright, right? So let's see here. So again, this is a spreadsheet. You'll see how all the red ones are the ones that don't work for some reason, right? Pending, it's under contract, no rentals allowed, no go for us under contract. So the red just kind of makes us know that we don't need to follow up with those people anymore. And now, what does not work for hedge funds, right? So there might be a couple people in here. I kind of took some of the properties you sent me so I can kind of go over why they're not working. I know I probably went over them with you, but we'll kind of bring it in for everybody. And feel free to bring this up on Zillow right now so you can kind of follow along as I talk about it. I think we have 3 examples in here. So I'll give everyone a few seconds to pull this up on Zillow. You'll be able to kind of roll through the pictures and we can kind of talk about it as we do that. So boom, boom, boom. Okay. Some water. Let's see, Jed. Do you usually use 75% in target price and adjust it? Think repairs are more than normal. target price. So, what I usually do is, yeah, I have the asking price. Let's go back to that actually, so everyone knows what we're talking about here. So we have the asking price, um, asking price on market, asking price. Now, this one was an off market price. This top one was an off market one that I found. For once, you'll see I did, made some money on that one. And so then I knew I should go after all the properties around that one. That was my goal there, right? So if we're working on a property and we get a good offer from a hedge fund, you should probably stick in that neighborhood and start giving everyone offers in that neighborhood because we know they like that neighborhood. So a good indicator. But all these are the on-market asking prices, right? So these are, again, straight from Zillow. These target purchase prices, these are all 75% of this on-market asking price. So I think the answer to that is yes. So this does not take into account how much rehab I think is involved, nothing other than being 75% of the on-market asking price. And I will let you, and as we kind of go through some of these properties, this will make a little more sense of why we don't really need to fully understand the rehab if we're getting it at 75% of the asking price. Um, all right, so here, back to the property. Hopefully everyone had some time to bring this one up. This is a property in Norcross, Georgia. This is an area that hedge funds will buy in. It's close enough to Atlanta, Metro Atlanta. So really anywhere within a 60-mile radius of Metro Atlanta, which is, a huge, huge area. Ton of homes. Atlanta is a huge property that stretches a big part of the area, and then just anything really 60-mile radius of theirs is usually working. So, at first sight, this works, right? If you look back at our buy box, this is built after 1970, 1977. More than 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, minimum 2 bath. Great. Minimum square feet, 1250. This is 1944. Right away, this looks great. 315 in this area. I mean, that's a good marker. It's a good marker price for us. No HOA. That's great. But then we start looking at these pictures, right? Properties with extensive work needed. So this is a $315,000 property. If you are looking at these pictures, you'll see there's a lot of funkiness going on in this house, right? It needs a lot of work, and for understanding wise, 1,944 square feet. You can sometimes, depending on level of rehab, you can say, hey, $20 a square foot, $40 a square foot if it needs big ticket items like a roof or HVAC. Something like this that needs a full cosmetic rehab, but just not cosmetic rehab. I mean, we're talking about a brand new kitchen, right? We're talking about there's probably some walls that were put up here and there, conversions. It looks like maybe this used to be a garage at even one point that was converted into a living space. Just some funkiness going on here. And then also you'll see pictures in the backyard. If I remember right, this one has kind of like a man-made pond, right? It's not huge, right? Because the backyard's not that big, but it's something that hedge funds will not take on, right? So it's either like you got to have that thing filled in before the hedge fund buys it, or the hedge fund will charge a good penny. And usually, with that pond that needs to be kind of rectified and all the cosmetic that this house works, I mean, you're looking at $100,000 for this property. That's a no-go, right? We really want to, we're topping out at about 60. That's kind of like, we could maybe expand a little bit more than that, but 60 grand is usually like an indicator of, hey, if I think this is going to cost more than $60,000 to fix, it's probably not, it's probably a pass. And again, we see a lot of garages being converted into living spaces. So we want to make sure that when those conversions are done, we're asking questions, right? Was that work permitted? That's the main question we're asking. Hey, I see that this used to be a 2-car garage, and you can usually tell by the other homes in the neighborhood or on the same street, right? It looks the same. It's just instead of a garage, there's a wall and some windows maybe now. we really want to stay away from those conversions, right? It just kind of makes things more expensive. If it was not permitted, the hedge fund will come in and take it all down and make it back into a garage. And that can blow up a rehab budget, right? So sometimes these type of properties will slow you down big time on trying to make it work because you're trying to fit trying to fit a square in a circle hole, whatever that saying is, right? But um, funky layouts. We got funky layouts, big water features, in-ground pools are no-go, conversions, right? So carports or garages turned into bedrooms, or living spaces, the granny in suites, granny in-laws, what have you. Those are typically just like, hey, let's move on to the cookie cutter house. Although this could work great for some families, right? Just not quite the asset the hedge funds are looking for. So that's that one. Here's another one. Now, this is a no-go for a much different reason, right? I don't think so. Yeah, the person that sent me this one, I don't think is in here, but that's fine. Um, so these are wholesale deals, right? Wholesale deals, daisy chains. Now, the issue here is the control aspect, right? Typically, when you're working with wholesalers, like we're wholesalers, right? So we want to be the only wholesaler in the deal. We want to be direct to the agent or the seller, right? The seller's agent or the seller. Sometimes there's two agents in the deal, right? So the seller's agents in a brokerage, and all the agents in that brokerage know about deals that are kind of being tossed around. Well, that's fine, right? If two agents are in the deal, that's fine. But we really don't want to be working with wholesalers unless we're JVing with them, right? And so it's either you are in the middle or you and your JV partner are in the middle. You're not getting assigned to assign to assign to assign to a hedge fund at the end of the day. Biggest reason is you have no control, right? So you're direct to the agent. You're direct to the seller. If it's off market, obviously that's one thing, but on market, if you get it under contract, you now control the deal, right? You don't have to worry about timelines of another wholesaler, right? So we'll see this close of escrow. This close of escrow on this property is November 25th of 25. Why? Maybe there's a tenant in the house. Maybe the seller needs some time after, or what have you. But now we're dealing with a home that's closing way in the future. That could be a no-go for us. Also, you'll see typically these close of escrows, they can be 14 days out, 21 days out. And hedge funds you really need to be able to work with the hedge fund's timeline. So, obviously once we work together, you will kind of understand that as we work more and more together. But timelines are huge within these deals, right? You really need to be able to work along the hedge fund's timeline, not the wholesaler and seller's timeline. But we can make all that stuff happen if we're working with the agent or the seller. So that's kind of a big thing here. And the way to recognize these deals, right? You'll see close of escrows, right? That means there's a contract in place with a closing date on that contract, and that's close of escrow. A lot of wholesalers will send these typically with non-refundable EMD, right? So what they're saying is you need to inspect this before you go under contract to make sure that you do want it, to make sure that the price is good for you. We don't want to do that to hedge funds because what can happen is we can send a hedge fund to inspect the property. They're good with the price you give them, and then all of a sudden the deal's gone, right? And that's going to happen more times than not. I would say most likely that would happen probably 9 out of 10 times, right? And that's how you get blacklisted to working with hedge funds. So that's really a no-go. These deals are very hard to work through hedge funds, unless you have a great relationship with the wholesaler. They show you the house first. That the timeline works with the hedge fund, but that takes a lot of time to understand if that's going to work or not. Takes a lot of experience, right? And then you also see this is a easy indicator that it's coming from a wholesaler. They have the ARV and they have the asking price, right? That's what every wholesaler wants to show you is how much you're buying for it and how much equity you might be stepping into depending on the rehab needed. So these are just indicators of wholesale deals. So when wholesalers are sending these out, they're blasting them everywhere. Everyone gets a chance at it. You have these mom and pops that might be able to get there that same day. and maybe negotiate very quickly to purchase this property. Whereas with a hedge fund, you might need a couple of days to make it happen. So, um, and then here is another one, right? So again, like that first property, this one on paper looks like it would work. It kind of fits the buy box. It fits the buy box. So again, 3 bed, 2 bath, meets the minimums, perfect. It's over 1,250 square feet, perfect, right? 1970 or newer, it's 1971, no HOA. So everything here looks great, right? Um, but San Antonio. San Antonio is a little more of an expensive market, right? So when I see a property at 135, it kind of sets off triggers for me in this market. Um, you know, Even if it was, say Austin. Austin is, 45 minutes away, right? And Austin is very expensive, and San Antonio is getting up there as well. So this would set off some alarms in my mind. And then if you want to pull this property up, we can talk a little bit more about it. So, go ahead and pull this thing up on Zillow. We can look at the pictures. 6718 Pear Tree, San Antonio, Texas. Alex, sorry, man. This is the one that you that you pulled up. Um, but it's a good one. It's a good one, right? Because like I said, I mean, in certain markets like Birmingham, a 135 house might be a great house, right? It could be, there it could really work. In a place like San Antonio, it's a little different, right? Just because the first time home buyer market is a little more expensive, right? We're like more in the 250 range, 300 range. Right? So if you see something that's down to 135, there's a couple things probably up with the neighborhood, things of that sort. So, hopefully, everyone was able to pull enough or pull this up on Zillow. And so, when we kind of scroll on Zillow, there's a few things that we want to look at. And the rule of thumb here is, there's a couple things, but the number one rule of thumb is it's a no-go if the rehab costs more than 50% of the home value, right? So say this property was for $140,000. If the rehab looks to exceed $70,000, that's a no-go right away, right? And so that can happen a lot, actually, right? You can come across markets like Birmingham, Huntsville, Cleveland, Ohio, where you do get some $150,000 homes, and those rehabs get really close to that 50%, even like 30 to 40% usually is a no-go, right? So if we're looking at a $200,000 house, we want to be in that $40,000 range, right? 20%, anywhere from 10 to 20% is the level of rehab to purchase price we want, right? So if we're looking at a $300,000 house, we probably want to be within the $30,000 to $60,000 range on the rehab, and that's kind of how we'll be able to work both sides of the deal. We can work the sellers. Hey, this is a good rehab, right? We're taking on risk here. We're working with our buyer. Our buyer sees this and they're taking on some risk at a $60,000 rehab. So that's why I need it at this price. And then on the other end, the hedge fund, they might actually think, well, we thought it was 60,000, but this actually came back at 50,000. So we can offer a little bit more, right? So that 10 to 20% rehab range gives you the best opportunity on both ends of the deal, right? So that's really what I look for. Something like this, you're looking at a 50% rehab, and that just doesn't do it when it comes down to rental, right? Because now you're getting expensive compared to the price of homes in this area. And so also, when you're looking at this cheap of a house, you're probably also seeing, crime stats go up, school ratings go down, things of that sort. So, if you're on the Zillow listing, you can actually scroll down to the bottom of the listing. At the bottom of the listing, it will show you the school ratings, right? It even breaks it down, right? Elementary, middle, high school. Most hedge funds want to be at least a 3 out of 10 and above, right? So we want to keep that in mind. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the school ratings, and you'll see, this one might be a 3 out of 10. I can't remember right now, but that's the minimum, right? We want to be at minimum 3 out of 10, and then crime stats, right? If we go down into the street view of these homes as well, there's a couple of things that we always want to pay attention to. Hedge funds do not want to buy homes around homes that are boarded up, right? Abandoned homes, homes that have been burnt to the ground, just things that make the neighborhood look bad and hard to rent properties, right? Hedge funds will pay a little bit more, but they want the property that is easy to rent. They want a big rental pool. And so this property just doesn't lie in the best neighborhood. Um, and so when you get kind of some of these older neighborhoods in the 70s, 80s, sometimes you do have a lot of crime here. Sometimes you do have a lot of homes that have been boarded up, that have been abandoned, things of that sort. We kind of stay away from those type of areas. And then this home specifically, the level of rehab for this one is pretty high compared to the purchase price. Now, if I'm a fix and flipper, this might be a good one for me, right? Because I know that I might be able to get a pretty good discount on this. And for me, if I'm going to fix it and flip it, I don't have to worry about selling it to a hedge fund. I'm selling it to someone that's going to live in the property, and there's always going to be someone to buy this, right? There's always going to be someone to buy this once it's fixed up. But in this condition, a hedge fund is not going to want to sink the amount of time and risk into this property just due to the level of rehab, the type of neighborhood it's in, and the appreciation here is just not going to be the best either. This is kind of what happens, and so we see that with homes, across from commercial buildings, commercial apartments, even on the same street as like a school or convenience marts, things of that sort. We don't really want homes across the street from commercial properties. So keep that in mind. They just won't move forward with it. Too much traffic, harder for families to live there, a little more dangerous sometimes. You have more people walking by your house, more traffic, things of that sort, just harder to rent. Um, and so that, boom, boom. And so those are just kind of some things to key on. And those are really like, you can mainly see all these aspects that we've talked about on Zillow. Zillow's going to give you all this information. You can also take this address to a crime website to just see the level of crime as well. And if it's high, it's probably a no-go. Let's see. Let's see if we have any questions. Jed, okay, 60,000 in repairs, the threshold. So Mark, so 60,000, yeah. So one thing that we do have to understand as well, though, 60,000 is a threshold. Sometimes when depending on the fund, they will not include big ticket items in that $60,000 rehab, right? Just because it doesn't really show the full term of the deal, right? If a roof needs to be replaced and an HVAC needs to be replaced, well, maybe we're looking at $20,000-$30,000 right there. They might put that on the side, right? And say, okay, well, $60,000 for the cosmetics of the property, including, outside and inside. So, I would say you can still work it in that $60,000 rehab, even if it goes a little beyond that. If a roof does need to be replaced or an HVAC needs to be replaced, things like that. Those kind of big ticket items can blow up a rehab, but depending on the deal, they can definitely still get after it and purchase it. And then Karen, will they pay a little bit more if the house doesn't need much work? Definitely. And I kind of went over a lot of this in the very first training, I believe. But what the funds will do, and every fund is a little bit different. Some are 30, some are 40, some are 50. Every fund has a rehab budget that they put on every single house, no matter what. It could be a $200,000 house. It could be a $300,000 house. It could be a $400,000 house. One could look pristine and one could look like a total mess. And no matter what, they're going to say, hey, this is our offer with our $40,000 rehab budget included. So we know when we're setting that deal, that rehab looks like it should cost about 20,000. Well, we know we actually might get our offer, our final offer might come back higher than their original offer. Or we know, hey, they're giving us a $40,000 rehab budget on this, but after looking at these pictures, this looks like a $60,000 rehab. Well, we want to make sure that we have the spread in the deal for that extra $20,000 of rehab, because if it comes back as a $60,000 rehab, they will deduct that $20,000 from their offer price, right? So it could go from a $200,000 deal to a $180,000 offer, right? So it's literally dollar for dollar each way. Just really depends on the rehab budget. So we really want to get good at understanding rehab budgets. And typically, for me, I'm usually like, hey, if it needs a brand new kitchen, 15,000. If it needs a new bathroom, 5,000. If it needs a new master bathroom, 7,500. If it needs, all new flooring, 5,000. Paint, 5,000, right? So you kind of just understand these price points as you go. And then you can really try to understand what the rehab is going to be before you send it to the hedge fund, so you kind of know where you're at when they come back with their offers. And then let's see, Monica, how do you feel about a one-car garage versus a two-car garage? One-car garages work, carports work, but some funds will only buy if it's a two-car garage. So if it's a one-car garage or it's a carport, we kind of just limit who we can send it to, who will actually buy it, right? So a two-car garage is definitely always ideal because that hits the buy box for pretty much all funds. Mumbo, when I'm placing an offer to a realtor, even if the house needs $20,000 of repairs, the hedge fund is still willing to purchase the house at 1% of the purchase price. It matches the rental income. Correct. Um, that's a most of the time, yes. Right. So again, it really depends on the price point, the market, the average yield in that specific market. But you can say if a house needs 20% and you're at 1%, I mean, they're going to buy that property all day, every day. That's a very easy marker to say this is going to work for sure. And by the way, most of the PowerPoint, we just really wanted to go over what does not work, so that can kind of help you guys understand what to look for. Um, these properties, these do not work for hedge funds. Keep that in mind. That's pretty much all I did have for the PowerPoint today. That kind of rounds us out on our acquisition stuff here. So definitely drop your questions into the chat right now, and we can kind of go over those. I'll kind of put that one up again. So if you want to look at these properties again, especially this one or Rockborough, and come up with some questions, we can answer those right now. Didn't want to hold you guys for too long already. It's already 40 minutes already somehow. Dang. Okay. Okay, so Karen, once we get to the point where we are negotiating with the realtor, will you help us with those numbers? 100%. So, that's really, I think, a good point to bring me in. And that's why I have my email, my name here, deals@tritonreigroup.com. Once you send these offers out and you're getting some counters back and they're looking good, or you think, hey, I'm not too sure. A couple people already have here. Definitely get me involved, and I can say, hey, actually, this one won't even work, or I can say, hey, we're close here, a little bit more negotiation, and we're probably good to go. So definitely bring me in whenever you feel like you think you need me, when you're comfortable, and we can go from there. Definitely. Jed, what stipulation do you use in case the hedge fund says no? or do you handle that? I've sent about 20 offers, no counter so far. I don't want to lose EMD if they won't buy it. So this is again where I want to get involved right before you go under contract. So I think it's a good idea to reach out to me. We will have some stipulations. I did put some of them in the offer email that I showed everybody. Those typically will help you get out of the deal. But before you go under contract, I would say, yeah, get me involved so we can kind of talk about the deal, where you're at with the agent, and the next step. Because again, now it's coming down to timelines on the contract, and that's a lot of time we're saving EMD through those timelines that we put on the contract. Um, Monica, how many hedge fund managers do you recommend we have on an ongoing relationship with? And does that question that question kind of, I guess, mean two things, right? So how many hedge fund managers at a singular hedge fund, or just in general, how many hedge funds do we want to work with, right? Um, it really depends, right? So a lot of times we are working backwards, right? So we're getting in touch with the hedge funds and then working backwards after we know what they want. So typically, you know, when I'm starting with a new hedge fund, I'm starting with one person at that hedge fund, right? Because we want to make sure that we establish a good relationship and we're not just blowing them up across the board because they work together. They know who's reaching out to them. Um, if we're sending just a deal, if we just want to like send out deals to them, right, to hope that one sticks, and all of a sudden one stops working with you because they're getting crappy deals, and then you move to the next one, send crappy deals. Well, once your name appears on their blacklist, once you become blacklisted with them, now no none of them are going to work with you. So you really want to work with one, work through one, make sure you're sending good deals to start with, and kind of go from there. So that being said, if you're working with 5 hedge funds, I mean, they pretty much could cover all your bases, depending on, markets you're in and things of that sort. And okay, once we hit our 50 LOIs sent, we can then schedule one-on-one with you. That is correct. Yeah. So again, send those 50 out. We'll hop on a call. I will qualify that with you. And we can kind of go from there, see kind of, what you're sending, what you're getting back, how you're following up, all that stuff. I can kind of guide you there, definitely. Okay, Mark, can you go over a good example of what a good property fits for a hedge fund, or did we cover that in past 2 trainings? We did cover that in the past 2 trainings, so that's on my YouTube. It's just James Mossholder Real Estate. We did go pretty into depth on those. Even the very first talk I did, that one's on my YouTube as well. They're all about an hour and a half long, so maybe just kind of speed them up a little bit to get through them. But we did go through what works for hedge funds on those. Edgar, would you say looking on Zillow and Deal Machine would be the same, or is there an advantage to having Deal Machine? It depends, right? Because again, we want to be direct to the seller or the seller's agent. Now, again, it just depends. It depends on the deal, each deal. So you can definitely pick up some deals on there. Um, so it's for me, Zillow is just an easy resource to kind of send to the masses because they're all there on market, ready to be purchased. You can see the days on market there. That's always kind of a big thing. And then you could always search by keywords, right? And so Zillow with keywords just makes things really easy, and you can kind of see a map of, hey, this is in the middle of a neighborhood. Zillow just makes things really easy sometimes. So but the more softwares you use, sometimes one software might have something that another software does not have. In the future, so I did mention earlier in this presentation that in a few weeks we'll be starting the second type of training. The second type of training will actually include some different softwares that we use as well. So then we'll be able to kind of teach how to get a little more in the weeds on some stuff there. Maybe I missed it, but wanted to know how long should be the option period. So that depends on the market, depends on the fund. Depends on the current deal, so it's very deal specific, and depending on the market, it's fund specific as well. But whatever you can get, you want to elongate that if possible. There's no really one good answer to that, but it's something that we can definitely talk about on a one-to-one. Um, Karen, can you go over how you follow up with an LOI you sent but didn't get a response? Very easy, right? So usually I send out all my follow-ups about 14 to 15 days from the last kind of reach out. So if I sent, 50 offers that got no response, well, I'm gonna go back to those 50 offers in 2 weeks from now, from the day I sent them. I'm gonna go check them on Zillow again. If they price reduced, then I'm gonna send them another offer at that 75% mark again. Just send that straight out. If they have not price reduced, I'm going to resend the exact same offer I sent in the first place. I'm just trying to get a reaction. I want to make sure they have a heartbeat. That's literally what I'm doing. I want to make sure they have a heartbeat. I want to make sure they either say, get the heck out of here, or hey, that's not going to work. And then, you kind of work from there, right? So, at the end of the day, that first response is you just want to make sure they have a heartbeat, honestly. That's kind of what I'm looking for, right? So in 14 days from the first one, send it out again. But you do want to check Zillow because they could have price reduced and you don't want to chop your own legs off. If they price reduced, you need to price reduce as well. How do you handle rude responses from a realtor? Move on. There's too many deals out there, right? So, I get them all the time. I get LOL. I get remove me from your list. Crazy offer. Like, what the heck are you thinking? You're dumb. Blah blah blah. Um, at the end of the day, the property's been on. Because again, we're focusing on properties that have been on market for 50 or more days. A lot of times, these homes are on market for 50 or more days, and the price has never been reduced. The market has spoken. The house is not selling. So if that agent is giving you a nasty response, that could be a reason why the house hasn't sold. So just keep that in mind. There's too many deals out there to really worry about rude responses. If they're like, "Hey, that's a terrible offer, get out of here," I would probably send them another offer in 14 days. You never know. See what happens. And no sweat off your back, right? Um, and sometimes it feels good if they come back and they're like, "Oh, I kind of have to take that maybe." um, all right, so and just so again, I've been doing this again 7 to 8 years. I've been called everything in the world, and I've been called those things, and I have still purchased properties off some of those people. And then the great thing is those are the people that will work with you next, right? The next deal they come, they're saying it to you first because you performed for them at the end of the day when they were nasty to you. So some of those have turned into great relationships for myself. So just keep that in mind. Everyone has bad days. So okay, Jed, is it worth sending an offer on a property that doesn't have a lot of negotiation leverage, like old kitchen, bath, bed? Yes, definitely. You never know what situation the seller is in, and an agent never wants to give that away if they know the seller's in a bad position, right? And sometimes, the sellers get to a spot where they're going to sell to someone, and if we don't throw our offer in, someone else might throw their offer in, and they could be lucky and get a good deal, and that could have been us, right? So a lot of time it's a divorce situation, and the people don't care about walking away. They just want to make sure they don't lose money at the end of the day, and they just want to get out as soon as possible. So you never know the situation. You never know what's going on. You never know if they don't sell that property within the next month or so, they might even lose it, right? So you could always be helping someone. So to put that out there, just make sure that you don't really care about that stuff. And now you're starting low. You can always come up high. You can always come back up high. So What's the deadline to send out 50 and scheduling your one-on-one? No real deadline. If you do it, just come my way and we'll set that up. So, it's a little homework. Obviously, the quicker you do it, the better of a chance you got to get something going sooner. So, no deadline. Just when you get it done, let me know and we can definitely meet. Oh, thanks, Jed. I appreciate you throwing that in there. That's my YouTube. Obviously, if you like and subscribe my stuff, that helps me out. Lets me know I'm putting the good stuff out there for y'all. Makes lets me know that I'm helping y'all. So, and obviously, everyone, the more subscribers, the more people get to kind of work with us. So, also brings in more deals for everyone. Um, Pravin, how long hedge fund will take to close on a property on an average? It depends. A lot of times it can be, I typically say 14 to 20 days after their inspection. And the reason I say that is because it depends, a lot of time it depends on the title company you're using. If you use their preferred title company, they could usually do it in 14 days. If you have to use a different title company, like the seller will not budge on that, that sometimes can turn into 20, 25 days. So it does depend on the deal itself. Something that I can definitely help you all out with. But typically I say, from the day they say, let's go under contract. Um, I usually just 30 days out. I just 30 days out. Usually that's good with everybody. If you have to shorten that up, I'll even say on or before, 30 days out. So if it was something like today, my close of escrow on contract would be 30 days from today, as long as it's a business day, right? And then, it would literally say, close of escrow on or before that date of 30 days out. See, Josh, in the spreadsheet, there's a column that reads agent's email found and closed. What does that? Oh, sorry. So that's actually a personal thing. Close is the CRM that I use. So I put all my agent emails in that CRM. Well, that's my VA actually. So my VA, that she will dump all the agent emails in the spreadsheet, and then she'll actually take all those agent emails into my CRM just so that we have them moving forward. I don't want to lose them on the spreadsheet. So for y'all, you can just ignore the found and close part there. See, when you resend the offer, do you change the wording in the email? Good question. So obviously all the stipulations stay the same. All the numbers and offer price stuff stays the same. Now there typically is that one little paragraph I gave everyone to kind of work with or put into the email. Yeah, that can definitely, right? You probably do want to acknowledge that you sent an offer. So you could say something along the lines of, hey, just I see the property is still available. I sent an offer a couple of weeks ago. Still interested in the property, so I wanted to resend my offer in case you didn't get it. Something like along those lines. And hey, I'm looking for a few more properties for the end of the year. I have a couple of buyers that keep asking me, and I'm also looking for myself. Right? It's just something along those lines of uh, of that. So I would acknowledge that I had sent something previously. Karen, do you only wholesale to hedge funds? I do not. So, but that is still my main buyer. I would say hedge funds buy 80 to 85% of my of the properties I wholesale. Um, but there's the ones that kind of just fall through the crack for whatever reason that happen to be good deals. And there's always more people that I'm working with that always kind of come to me asking for stuff. And even if they sometimes are close enough to the hedge fund and they're a good friend of mine, I'll still sell it or send it their way. So um, I do definitely wholesale to more than just hedge funds, but I mean, by far, when I first started, it was 100% hedge funds. Every year goes by, it's maybe 3 or 4% less, but they're definitely still who I mainly wholesale to. Rune. If the asking price is close to the 1% rule, can we be closer to asking price in our offer? Example, if the asking is 230, but rent estimate is 2100, do we still offer 75% of asking, or can we be competitive and be higher to lock it up? So what I always say in that situation is you can never go back down, but you can always come up, right? So I would still pin it down at that 173 price. And just know that you probably do have some more room for counters and things of that sort. Just know if the on-market asking price is 230, like in your example, you need to shove yourself in there somewhere, right? So if you land at 200,000 with the seller, well, you still want to show some type of at least a 10% discount, right? Or maybe at least a 5%, right? So at 230, I would probably be sending it to, I would probably want to send it to the hedge fund about 215, right? So well, that means you're kind of you're starting to limit yourself depending on how close you get to that on market asking. Um, and you kind of want to spread that as much as possible because again, we still have to inspect, and there still can be some stuff in that inspection that comes up that might be pretty hard to negotiate on the back end with the seller, right? Because they could say, well, you're already getting a great deal, you're already doing this and that and all that. So you just want to be conscious of you may need to negotiate on the back end. Oh, okay. Alex, in Texas, had agent asked, do you pay title? So, okay, so I'm assuming they're saying the title fee, the closing title fee. Angelo, I gotta meet you, buddy. But okay, so Alex, in Texas, do you pay for the closing title fee? So usually I'll keep that as a last minute negotiation tactic, like, hey, we're so close here. How about if I pay the closing costs? Right now, that does not include commissions. That just includes title fees. And that's, I believe, what the agent is saying here is, will they pay title fees, which tend to be about, 1 to 1.5 of the asking price. So that can be a few thousand, right? So if your spread is kind of thin, you got to keep that in mind. Now, if you use the hedge fund's preferred title company, and it's an assignment, they typically will cover all closing costs. If it's a double close, they will at least cover your closing costs on the BC side, but now you're paying for it on the AB side if you told the seller you would pay for it. So it really depends. You got to watch yourself if you're double closing or if you're assigning. Again, when you're first reaching out to hedge funds, a lot of time you will have to double close to them until you've kind of built a relationship. But some will let you assign right away too. So
Thank you. Sorry, just real quick. Should I offer that, like, if we paid the title fees, can we use our preferred title company?
correct. Yeah. That's that's
Okay.
that's what I would say definitely. So I would say, hey, and I will put that on my offer as well. So I'll put offer price and then below the offer price, depending on where I'm at in the deal, I will say, my company to cover sellers title fees if seller uses buyer's preferred title company. So something along those lines, I will put on the offer.
Okay, and if they ask what title company, what would I want to respond back with?
That's a great question, because it does change depending on what fund you're dealing with. That's something that we can probably talk on the back end. So I tell you the right one because there's a few out there, and wouldn't really make sense to start naming them off because
Okay,
it doesn't matter. But yeah, once we're kind of talking about the deal, we can kind of cover that once we determine who we would be sending the deal to.
got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. Thank you, Edgar. What about new construction? Certain funds buy new construction, but they buy them very differently. Some funds will only buy new construction if they have not hit the market. Um, and they need to be 90% or more completed, right? So it's pretty much the house is almost ready to go, but maybe they're waiting on the appliance deliveries, or maybe they still have to do like the landscaping or something along those lines. So Some will buy new construction, but it has to be off market. So a lot of times what will happen is you'll come across some Zillow deals of new construction. You'll see the agent that's selling the new construction, and usually the builder, if it's a bunch of new construction homes, usually that agent is selling a bunch of homes for that builder. So what you can do in essence is contact that agent and say, hey, I see, you have new construction listed here. It looks like it's a new subdivision, or it looks like, you know, there's like 4, 5, 6 new properties on this street, same builder. Have any of them not hit the market yet? And can I check those ones out? They will buy those. So they do have to be off market. Some hedge funds will not buy. I would probably say 70% of hedge funds will not buy new construction. They do have to buy from whoever owns it, or the seller, whoever lived in the property. So the property has to be lived in before they will buy it. So just put that out there. Monica, is there a shortcut on Google Docs to add a copy of the LOI sent so we can have it quickly to resource versus searching out email sent? So, what I have, usually that's why I use my CRM for that kind of stuff. Google Docs and Google spreadsheets, you can throw links onto the spreadsheet that can connect you back to whatever resource you're using. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing here because I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't had to do it in a while. Um, You can also, if you go into your Google email, you can, if you're in the email, you should have the URL for that specific email. You can drop that URL into the spreadsheet so that when you click on the URL, it takes you straight to your Gmail and straight to that actual email sent. That's probably the best way to do it if I had to guess. You're welcome. No problem, Angelo. Retirement communities, that is a no-go. So 55 plus, that we kind of lump those in the HOA rental restrictions that we do not allow. So again, just a very small rental pool when it comes to that. So no foreclosures. That is correct. Pre-foreclosures are okay. Hedge funds will not buy foreclosures, like they will not buy HUD properties, REOs. You would actually have to purchase that and season it. So you would actually have to hold it. Now I've done it before, and that's pretty high level on how to do that correctly. So, and a lot of risk. So I would say just stay away from foreclosures. But pre-foreclosures, as long as you understand where they are at in that process, usually, hopefully, before the 3 to 4 month mark of pre-foreclosure is usually okay. Thanks, Mark. Good question. You're welcome, Monica. Good question, Karen. So yeah, we're already more than an hour in. This is kind of where I wanted to be at today, to make sure that everyone can kind of stay focused and not really kill everyone with too much here. The goal today was to really give a rounded approach to what we're looking at. We want to save your time as much as possible when we're going out and looking for homes right away. That stuff's not going to work. This stuff can work. Again, 1995 to 2010, great honey hole. Cookie cutter homes, great honey holes. That's where the first focus should be. 50 days plus on market. That's kind of my outreach there. So again, guys, throw a 1 in the chat if this was helpful. I know some of you have already said it, but I hope these 3 weeks were valuable for everyone. Again, if you throw 50 LOIs out, I will ask to prove that, right? I will make you bring up some emails with dates and timestamps. And if you can produce all that stuff, I will definitely hop on a one-on-one call with you. If you have some deals in the works and you're kind of to a point where it's like, hey, we're talking about contracts and timelines, get me involved, no problem. And we'll get after it, everyone. So, this again, this will be up on my YouTube at some point whenever Big Kev Doc get it going. And the other ones are already on my YouTube. So again, hopefully this helped. And then, watch out. I'll post some stuff in the sub two group again when we get closer to the next set of trainings. Hopefully this gives you guys enough to kind of start on that ground floor, build a foundation. You will learn great negotiation from this stuff because that's the goal here is to negotiate, right? We're throwing low offers so that we can negotiate, counter, get deals done. I think that does kind of conclude this for today. Again, great. I loved having everyone here. Hopefully I get help from some of y'all with some deals ready to go and we can kind of make some money together and do some deals together. That would be great. And so, looking forward to it with all of you.